Good evening and welcome to ILTV Weekly. Introducing this week's guests, we have former Knesset member Rabbi Dov Lipman and pollster and political pundit Mitchell Barak. The long-anticipated presidential election is finally underway in the United States. All eyes of the world are tuned in to learn whether the next president, the leader of the free world, will be Democrat Hillary Clinton or Republican Donald Trump. But before we turn our attention overseas, we'll discuss the 21st anniversary of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, who was gunned down in Tel Aviv by gunman Yigal Amir on November 4th, 1995. That night in Tel Aviv shocked and traumatized the nation when gunman Amir fired 3 shots that killed the Israeli leader on that Saturday night. There was a memorial held this last week in Rabin Square, attended by many thousands. But this year, the event was less stately and more political than in years past. Let's first look back at the message from Rabin just moments before he was assassinated.
ורואה את כאבי המשפחות של חיילי צה"ל. למענם, למען בנינו, נכדינו, במקרה שלי. אני רוצה שהממשלה הזאת תמצה כל צדק, כל אפשרות לקדם להגיע לשלום כולל. גם עם סוריה תהיה אפשרות להגיע לשלום. עצרת זאת חייבת לשדר לציבור הישראלי, לציבור היהודי בעולם, לרבים ורבים בעולם הערבי ובעולם החיצוני, שעם ישראל רוצה בשלום, תומך בשלום, ועל כך תודה רבה.
Well, before we begin our discussion, let's hear this comment from journalist and author Natan Odenheimer about the legacy of the Prime Minister and his notorious assassin. That ideology that you're citing has a following. Are there people who, till today, are fans of Yigal and Hagai Amir?
Absolutely. This is kind of a sad reality, and I think that if you want to trace the complex reality that pushed Amir to do that, we should go and understand the history that has to do with the Mizrahi-Ashkenazi tension, and also have to do with messianic ideas that are actually rising in Israel. And Yigal Amir has followers, have people that believe that what he did was right, was good for Israel. Not too long ago, officers cadet from the officer school Bad Echad in Israel was kicked out from showing support for Yigal Amir. Recent polls in Ma'ariv and Yediot Achronot from the past 2-3 years show that many Israelis, in the percentages of like 19 to 55%, depending on which sector we're talking about, believe that Yigal Amir wasn't the person who murdered Yitzhak Rabin. Generally speaking, among the what we call left-wing bloc, Yitzhak Rabin was glorified, sanctified. He's considered a saint of sort of the Israeli left. The heritage that allegedly he bestowed on Israeli public after the murder, that is of peace. And there's almost complete disregard to the things that he did before he became a peacemaker, which is actually kind of a turn in his last year as prime minister. When we're talking about right-wing people, we have people who are more mamlachti, what we call like nationalistic, conventional, conservative nationalistic, and they don't necessarily hold Rabin to a high regard. However, they do appreciate him as a prime minister and see that killing him was a horrible crime against the state and against the people of Israel. At the same time, in the fringe of the right, we also see strong support to Yigal Amir and seeing Yitzhak Rabin as a demon of sorts all through his career, not only about his decision to perhaps withdraw from the West Bank and make peace with the...
Dov, you authored a book, it's not even out yet in a hard copy, but it's done, called Words Can Kill, The Untold Story of the Rabin Assassination and Lessons for Today. Without ruining the book for people, we want them to go out and buy it. What are some of those lessons?
Sure. The book was originally a Hebrew book written by an agent in the Shin Bet, in the Israeli Internal Security Agency, who worked on protecting the prime minister, trying to root out extremists that might kill the prime minister, and then was with Yigal Amir, the assassin, for a few nights after the assassination took place, and decided to kill Yigal Amir. I won't spoil what happens.
He was going to kill Amir?
He was actually putting his hand on the gun to kill Yigal Amir
While he was in
he was in custody after the assassination.
Well, that's a book everyone has to get.
Correct. And what he does is the story, as he makes the decision to kill him, he weaves through all the history and then the lessons afterwards. And the lesson which we have not learned is the politics should not be the issue. We can debate left wing, right wing, but the rhetoric that led up to the Rabine assassination, the tones that were being used, even within mainstream Israeli politics, that's something we have not learned the lesson from. We can debate, we should debate, it's a democracy. I was in the Knesset, we should have open, wonderful debates, but there's a line that you cross. Both left-wing and right-wing, by the way. This is not in any way just against the right-wing extreme, where the extremes cross that line and we allow it to come to the center. And those are the dangerous tones where you can have another political assassination. You have people besmirching others in ways which you cannot allow in an open democracy, even for free speech. We have to crack down on that. And that should be what everyone should be gathering together to talk about when we talk about the Rabine assassination, that we should crack down on this and make sure we never reach a point where we have people calling people traitors, pictures with them with targets on their heads, pictures of them in keffiyehs as if they're some kind of a terrorist, pictures of them in Nazi uniforms, on all sides of the political equation. That's what we have to root out, and every leader in Israel has to come together to make sure we learn that lesson, and that should be what we're talking about as a nation and the education system as we talk about the legacy of Rabin and the Rabin assassination.
Well, Mitchell, let me ask you this. You're a pollster and you follow public opinion quite closely here in Israel. Do you think that a sizable proportion of the population thinks of Yigal Amir as a hero?
Well, I think there is he's gaining some traction as...
Gaining support over the years?
From he's been in jail, and the extremist elements have taken over, both on the right and left, but there's a very big extremist element that has taken over and trying to fight. Look, there's the same people, I don't know who they are, but there's people that are burning down churches and mosques. So, those kind of people would find it amenable, that philosophy. What I think is important, though, I mean, it's interesting, and I look forward to reading Dov's book, the same kind of language. Language is very important. It's important for leaders to choose the words properly, to choose them carefully and responsibly. The problem is that in Israel, you're going to gain votes by promoting hatred and promoting anger, just like we're seeing now in the United States. So you have to have, if you don't have a positive policy or a policy of hope that you want to be elected on, then you have to have a policy of hate, a policy of danger. Now, the Prime Minister has used in the last election the threat of the Iranian nuclear attack, who can handle the U.S. president when it comes to that deal and so forth. But the Iranian leader was the enemy that Netanyahu was going against.
So that's legitimate. But Dov, would you say that it's the tone? Look, Prime Minister Netanyahu was on that balcony in Jerusalem speaking against Rabin when the coffin was carried by, just days before the assassination, or in that period before the assassination. You've been in the Knesset in recent years. Has that tone changed, or is there less of that kind of...
People are much more sensitive to it, that's for sure. People are willing to speak out against it. It's something that we always have to be talking about. And I want to stress a point. Dvir Kariv, this agent, and even the Prime Minister Rabin himself, they didn't believe that a Jew would kill another Jew, meaning some of the intelligence fell through the cracks and the Prime Minister wasn't even willing to wear a bulletproof jacket because they didn't even believe it could happen. We have to remember it happened. It's a tragedy of, we don't know the proportions that a Jew killed a Jewish leader in the state of Israel. The ripple effects are huge. And we have to get back to the core of what kind of people we are, where we can't allow that to happen. And we have to believe that it can happen on all sides of the equation, and always be willing to speak out against it. And I believe a big part of it has to happen in the education system, because my children go to schools today and people say, oh, that left-winger, or oh, that right-winger, with a tone of dismissal, complete dismissal, which we can't allow. There should be open debate. People should be talking about the facts, like Mitchell said. People go to the extreme tones when they have nothing to offer. We should be discussing the issues in a real serious manner. That should be the discussion in our political realm, and not just empty rhetoric, which is scary.
So let me ask you this.
I'll tell you just from the left, now that we've said about the right. In the 2009 election, Meretz ran an ad comparing Lieberman to a number of dictators, including Mussolini. If you love Mussolini, you're going to love Avigdor Lieberman. And that was slanderous. It was character defamation. But somehow the left got a pass on that one. If a right-wing party had said that, they would have been slammed on it. So the same kind of language you got to find. It's as if Meretz was running a campaign against Lieberman. They're not. But they're scaring people into voting for them to stop the Lieberman, and Lieberman wants to stop Meretz and so forth. So you have to have that language of hate. Unfortunately, in this country, that's what motivates people and gets them out to the polls.
We're just about out of time in this section, but one thing that bothered me was that this year's rally in memory of Rabin was kind of hijacked politically. I mean, there you had Herzog, the leader of the opposition, using that opportunity to say he's not going to join a unity government. Is that the place for this kind of a thing?
And actually, our party, I'm in a center party, Shatid, the leader of my party was invited to go, and there was we're not to take the Rabin assassination and turn it into any kind of a political rally for any side is a big mistake, and just, in my opinion, turns up the rhetoric. We have to learn the lesson, and this is the message we're trying to spread, of getting away from the extremism, coming to the political center where we can have real debate, real discussion, and vision for where we want to go as a country, and not just trying to use any gimmick that we have, including, sadly, the gimmick of using an assassination for political purposes. We have to get back to the issues, discuss them seriously, and try to go somewhere as a people, and that's part of the message that we try to share in the book.
All right, we have to turn now to the U.S. elections, unfortunately. We start. Let's talk about the voters in Israel. Some consider us to be kind of the 51st state, the state of Israel. About 200,000 American citizens living in this country, including me and you, not you anymore, you got to give up your citizenship, are eligible to vote. A poll ordered by the I Vote Israel organization was released this week and found that Donald Trump topped Hillary Clinton by 49 to 44% among American citizens living in this country. The margin was very close. Mitchell Barak found that, our pollster is here with us, Mitchell Barak, found that Trump underperformed Mitt Romney's result in the 2012 election. Mitchell and his company, Kivun Research, conducted the poll, and including the findings that 2/3 of the voters hold unfavorable views about both candidates. So first of all, we'll bring up a slide now that shows the results that you found of how the Israeli Americans voted. How did we vote?
Well, first of all, I like to say I wore my purple tie because purple is the color that you have blue and red in order to make it. So I think that I'll start with the end, which is this has been a divisive, difficult campaign, a lot of hatred, some of the same kind of hatred we spoke about in Israel. And what America needs to do now is blend that red and blue into purple.
I want to know when to change the slides. You can talk about that first slide, which is up there, about who won the vote.
Okay. So Donald, according to our poll, which was almost 1,200 people, 1,140 people, 49% of them voted for Donald Trump, 44% for Hillary Clinton.
Trump's the winner.
Well, Trump is the winner. The issue here, there's a few issues. First of all, when you mention that number 200,000, which it's debated, nobody knows what the real number is, but let's say that number is correct. It's not a block of 200,000 people. There's people in New York, there's people in Pennsylvania, Ohio,
different
Florida.
States,
yeah,
and
it's
so
in
on.
different states. So it's hard to see. American voters in Israel have power. They have influence, especially in close races where it's going to go to absentee ballots. But it's hard to say where they're going to have the most influence because it depends on what state they're registered
All right, we're
in.
going to look at the second slide now and see how Trump performed compared to 4 years ago when it was presidential candidate Mitt Romney who lost to President Obama. So how did he do compared to Romney?
Well, we see it from 2008 to 2012 till now. Generally, the vote is in Israel tends to favor Republican candidates, and we'll discuss that, I think, in a minute, due to religiosity, how religious a person is. This election, the I Vote Israel organization, from what they told me, saw a diminished interest, less interest in actually requesting ballots for this campaign, meaning even in the midterm election in 2014, there seemed to be more interest in it, and that could be explained by the fact that they were not the candidates were not viewed favorably, and a lot of people had they were between a rock and a hard place, or a Barak and a hard place, and they didn't know who to vote for, and therefore there was not a lot of enthusiastic voting, and it was more negative. Let's keep the other guy out, or this is the best.
We're going to talk about the negativity in a second, but I want to bring up that third slide now. It talks about religiosity. Now, according to this, Dov, the more religious you are, the more ultra-Orthodox you are, Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox, the more you would probably have voted, or Americans living here, would have probably voted for Trump as opposed to Hillary. Why is that?
I watched interviews about this where there was an ultra-Orthodox city councilman in Jerusalem who voted for Trump. And he said something which really stunned me. He said, we don't even get involved in any of the personal issues. We can't. We're not allowed to focus on that. We can't focus on anything about women or even the way somebody speaks. All we think about is Jerusalem, because that's our dear city, and we feel that he's the best for Jerusalem. And I want to make sure I clarify, I'm not in any way talking about my own personal opinions about anyone over here, just things that people were saying. For me, as someone religious, and again, without commenting on who to choose, to say that we separate the personal side from the leader is something which is very difficult for me to understand. Throughout our tradition, the leaders were chosen based on their character traits and their qualities. So that should play a role in a religious person deciding whichever candidate they want to go for. So it shocks me to hear that kind of language.
Right. So what it boils down to with religiosity here in Israel is that the people that are more religious, whether they're Dati or Haredi, religious or ultra-Orthodox, it's a land of Israel issue, it's a settlements issue, it's keep the State Department off our back. And
nothing to do with politics in America, like anti-abortion or anything?
Well, that's the second thing. Meaning the main issue is which administration is going to be best for that. And it's viewed that the Republicans are not going to be running around the world trying to force Israel to give up land for some peace agreement that is going to endanger Israel. The Democrats would be seen as more likely to do that. And the second thing, which is also important, the religious people in Israel can't get warm and fuzzy about a gay marriage, candidates that support gay marriage, or candidates that are supporting abortion. And it's those good old.
Well, there are religious gay people as well.
There are, but I haven't yet seen sanctioned gay unions within the Orthodox community. I mean, we just saw recently keeping Reform and conservative women away from the Kotel. So we have a really wide divide to get to from gender equality.
We have to turn to the last slide. The last slide is about favorability or unfavorability. Now, according to this, they dislike both candidates. Why, Dov?
That's what I wanted to say. In all the conversations that I've heard, it's that person cannot be the president. That's the comment. With passion, people believed for Israel's sake, for this is what I heard in all the conversations.
So they're voting for whoever they hate less?
It's to make sure that that person is not the president. That's 100% what I heard in most of the conversations. Very little about a vision towards anything. Negative.
Is that right?
Yeah, we asked, why did you vote for your candidate? And straight out, 50% of the people said danger of electing the other candidate. And keep in mind that also 65%, no matter who you voted for, the probability is that you don't like them. And that's really a difficult place to be in, and that's why there was not a lot of interest, and that's why people were avoiding this election. Some people said they voted many times, but this is the first election they're sitting out. There was just not a good choice of candidates on either side that really said, here's my vision for America, and it's going to be a great thing.
By the way, the results maybe weren't what the Trump camp was hoping for. And I understand that the Republicans actually issued a letter questioning your polling methodology. I mean, is that just more,
There is some politics behind that, but it is legitimate to question an exit poll.
That's what they do.
I mean, that's what exit polls are never exact. Dov almost didn't make it into the Knesset because of an exit poll, and the exit poll, even in Israel in the last election, the three networks ran exit polls in this last election, and they were 3 or 4 seats off for the Likud.
Well, we don't care what the next exit poll will say in the next Knesset election, because Dov is going to be so high on the Yesh Atid list that it won't matter what the polls say. All right, we have to turn now to the larger picture. Mercifully, the electioneering in what was arguably the dirtiest campaign in U.S. presidential history is over, and the result, we hope, will be clear and decisive. Dov, you wrote a book about how wrong words, the kind of language that candidates and politicians use can kill. Is there a danger that whoever is elected, that the opponents, because of the tone of this election, will try to use violence to change it?
The book has a chapter at the end called Lessons for Today, and I specifically talk about this point because I care deeply about America, I care deeply about what's happening around the world, and absolutely the tones that have been used, and when you hear these kinds of percentages that Mitchell has been telling us about people who voted to stop the other person, so now what happens when that other person is the President of the United States? And what I've seen over the course of the last week, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in Nazi uniforms on the social network, those are the kinds of images which then lead a madman to act on it. You always have to have some kind of a backing, and once a person feels, I'm stopping the evil person, that's where we're in danger. And I hope the leadership of the United States recognizes there's going to be a winner of this election, whoever that is. We have to rally around that winner, whoever that is. We cannot allow democracy to fall apart. People have to accept the results of the elections and tone everything down and start respecting whoever that person is, at least in the public venue, and start working together, because otherwise I am extremely nervous, especially after reading Dvir's story about the lead up to the Rabine assassination, that something terrible to whoever it is, wherever it is, could happen, and that will destroy democracy.
There's been severe incitement on both sides, primarily from Trump's side. You studied in the United States, you learned about politics there, you're still in connection with a lot of people involved deeply in the political system in the U.S. Is there something seriously wrong with the American democracy, with the American political system today? I mean, it sure seems like it.
First of all, Trump has broken every rule of an election campaign. He's done everything, he's said everything, he's got away with everything. He's not held to a standard, which means there is some kind of anger among those people who are voting for him that don't care. What I think is the important thing, now that we've gone through, and it's been a difficult election, a lot of people have lost not just Facebook friends, but real friends, based on who they're supporting.
You voted for Trump, I'm not your friend anymore?
Or you're voting for Clinton. Or Clinton people are saying, if Trump is elected, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna accept that. And that's also not democracy. So it's coming from both sides. It may be that it's coming from one side more, but the healing process has to start tonight in America, meaning America will disintegrate from this. And the lead up of the racial tensions and violence is just the preview of what could really be. And if whoever is a leader doesn't get that under control and start to heal the American people and heal those differences and have a civil discourse, America's headed for trouble. And anyone who follows democracy, and like all three of us have lived in America, America is greater than this election, and we've been past the Civil War, we've been past disagreements, and this will be the greatest challenge of the next president, whoever it will be.
Well, Dov, we're not taking sides on this program. Certainly, it's not our election, it's their election in the U.S. We certainly care about it. Do you think that America can pull together again? I mean, let me ask you this. Do you anticipate, just based on what you've seen in this campaign, that Donald Trump will get on and, after he loses, which at least the pollsters are saying is going to happen? I
wouldn't predict anything
we're not predicting.
Before the polls are over.
If he loses, can you see him coming on with a conciliatory message to try to help pull America back together?
I certainly hope that it happens. I certainly hope that either one of them will do that. I was watching Fox News today, and people are saying, again, the rhetoric that I'm seeing from voters is just something which is scary. We need people from the top to come forward and to raise the country up and to begin the healing process and to try to unite. Because if that doesn't happen, that fracture is going to destroy the United States of America and also could lead to tragic results.
Next week, we'll know. And then we can talk about, is this new president or new president-elect going to be good or bad for Israel? And we can move on from there. Thankfully, this campaign is over. That's all the time we have for this week. Next week, we can talk about that upcoming administration of the president-elect. And until then, thanks for being with us, and shalom from Israel.